On behalf of our board of directors, our president, Dr. Posler, and our provost, Dr. DePoy, along with our dean of school of business, Dr. Kennard, I, Bill Leamon, the MBA program director, would like to provide a warm welcome to any visitors here with us today. Is there anyone who hasn't been on this campus before? Raise your hand. Okay, so we've got some new faces, so thanks for coming. It means a lot to us. Tell your friends about the great things you're seeing here at Lake Erie College. Especially, I want to welcome the two men that are seated on the stage here in Rickle Theater on this beautiful campus of Lake Erie College. Our distinguished guests, Mr. Jim Boland and Ambassador Edward Crawford. So let's give it up to the... by introducing Mr. Jim Boland, and please forgive me, Ambassador Crawford, if I'm taking up too much of your time, but I think it's important to set the context and tell the story a little bit, especially as we get to question and answer, and that's going to be a very important point. At the end of their talk, the expectation is that our students and our guests, if they have a question, will come up and use this mic and ask the question of Mr. Boland, but more probably pertinent, Ambassador Crawford. So let me start by introducing Mr. Jim Boland, a VIP in his own right, who could have easily been our featured speaker today based on his successful career and many accomplishments. But instead, as a friend of Ambassador Crawford's for almost 60 years, he has agreed to be our moderator. Like Ambassador Crawford, his parents came from Ireland. Mr. Boland was born here in Cleveland, Ohio, and graduated from John Carroll University. He also received a master's degree from George Washington University and then served as an officer in the United States Army for 2 years. With our applause, let us thank Mr. Boland for his service to our country. Regarding his very successful career, from 1976 to 1998, Mr. Boland served as a partner at Ernst & Young, including vice chairman and a member of its management committee. From 1998 to 2002, he was president and chief executive of the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Gund Arena, and subsequently served as the vice chairman until mid-2007. Mr. Boland has served on the area's most prominent corporate and charitable boards. Mr. Boland has received many honors for his philanthropic work, but counts his marriage to his wife, Muffy Boland, and their 6 children and 15 grandchildren as the greatest accomplishment of his life. We are fortunate to have someone of his status on our campus, so let us show our gratitude to Mr. Boland for serving as the moderator for today's big event through a big round of applause. Now, regarding our featured speaker, Ambassador Edward Francis Crawford, I should say, is an American businessman and entrepreneur who also served as the U.S. Ambassador to Ireland from 2019 to 2021. He previously served as chairman and CEO of Park Ohio Holdings in industrial supply chain, logistics, and diversified manufacturing business. Now, regarding his early life, Ambassador Crawford's parents were Irish immigrants from Cork. His mother, Kate, also called Kay Crawford, was a driving force in his formation and outlook on life. In talking with Ambassador Crawford, he speaks especially fondly of his mother and his return to the family's former homestead as the U.S. Ambassador to Ireland as a seminal and emotional moment in his life, as you can imagine. In 1948, his father, a hardworking electrician, together with Crawford's mother and 2 brothers, Jerry and Richie, wanted to move to California to start a new life. During the move, as they were traveling on Route 20 in Ohio, the same Mentor Avenue, by the way, that runs right by our campus, their car broke down. His mother found an apartment for the family in Cleveland Heights, where Ambassador Crawford and his brothers grew up. How many student athletes do we have here in the room today? Go ahead and clap if you're a student athlete. So I think you will especially appreciate Ambassador Crawford's grit as an accomplished athlete in his entire life. As a young man, he was a Golden Gloves amateur boxer, later trained for and ran the Boston Marathon, and more recently was a full-court AAU basketball player well into his late 70s. Okay, I can assure you, you don't know a tougher, more competitive person, both personally and professionally, than Ambassador Crawford. And I'm sure the gentlemen and women who are here from Park, Ohio, and his family could attest perhaps to this fact. The phrase, no blood, no foul, pretty much summarizes his approach to athletics and to life in general. Now let's talk about his career. To start, Ambassador Crawford's service to our country started as a young man, a member of the Army National Guard from 1960 through 1963. Let us thank Ambassador Crawford for his service to our country through your applause. Let's get on with it, Leamon. But I need to tell you more about him first. While attending high school at John Carroll University, where he was a first-generation college student, Ambassador Crawford worked full-time in sales at Inland Steel Company. In 1963, Ambassador Crawford launched Cleveland Steel Container, a company that produced steel pails, the foundation of what is now Park, Ohio. Ambassador Crawford also established the Crawford Group, a venture capital management consulting company, in 1964. In other words, he's been working for himself for almost 60 years. In 92, Ambassador Crawford sold his company called K Home Products, which was named after his mother, Kay Crawford, to Park, Ohio. As a result of that transaction, he not only became the major shareholder, but also the chairman and chief executive officer. At the time, Park, Ohio was doing about $60 million in sales. Today, the company's revenue has increased over 30-fold. When combined with the Crawford Group and Crawford United, both private companies, sales are now over $2 billion, with over 10,000 employees around the world, many working here in and around Lake County. In 2018, his son Matthew, who attended Phillips Osborne Elementary School on the campus of Lake Erie College, succeeded his father as chairman and CEO. So Matthew is in the room. Can you raise your hand, Matthew? All right, let's hear it for Matthew Crawford. He spent his most formative years, perhaps, here on our campus. And as Ambassador Crawford resigned from Park, Ohio, when he was approved by the U.S. Senate to be the U.S. Ambassador to Ireland in 2019, only one generation after his parents with little means left Ireland to pursue a new life. They could never have imagined, how could they, that their son would someday become the U.S. Ambassador to Ireland. It is truly an absolutely incredible American success story, amazing when you think about it. Now, for the sake of brevity, I'm not going to go through all the many awards that he's won and been recognized for, but needless to say, he's had a long and distinguished career. Now, regarding his personal life, Ambassador Crawford and his wife of over 50 years married. Mary is here. Please raise your hand, Mary. So Mary and Ambassador Crawford have a son and daughter-in-law together. Matthew and his wife, Debbie. They are proud grandparents of 3 grandchildren, Colin, Kate, and Claire. So let us give a warm welcome to Ambassador Crawford and his family to Lake Erie College. So take it away, Jim. You're the moderator.
Okay, I don't know how I can follow you. You've covered everything, but I'm glad to be here with Eddie. It's going to be tough for me to call him anything but Eddie. But I'm happy to be here. And your mother came to Ireland in 1906, I believe. And your father in 1907. They met each other in New York City and had a quest with you at some point in time. Could you give us some input on the family, where you started, how your dad got here?
Well, being an Irish son, I could take 45 minutes on my mom, so we'll have to cut back a little bit on this because I think we want to cover a lot today, Jim, particularly with the unique opportunity speaking to so many young individuals. And The last time I was in this position, this is called Aspire Entrepreneurial Workshop Series, meaning I'm out there trying to share my history with students, and I've lectured around the world on this in students, and particularly in Ireland at Trinity College and so forth. And it's always been a challenge and fun to look out and see all these young faces here and try and decide, what I could possibly suggest to them and think that I could share with them to make their life easier. I will give them an opportunity, pass on a lot of my mother. She was fantastic. She left when she was 17 years old. She was one of 11 children. She came here, engineered her way here by joining the San Franciscan nuns because there was no money in the family. We were a farming family. So she says, well, that's where I'll go. They're recruiting nuns, so that's how I'll get to America. And she remembered my father in America. I don't know if she really ever showed up at the convent, but she was pretty independent, but a wonderful person, and she had 3 boys, and the story about, the truck breaking down is be more vivid. Mom decided we should go to California, so we got in the back of the truck. My father was an electrician, and in the back of the truck was all filled with tools all over the place, and the 3 of us, we thought we were at a party. I mean, we had trucks so down the New Jersey Turnpike, to the Pennsylvania Turnpike, down to the Pennsylvania Turnpike, over to Ohio Turnpike, but there was no Ohio Turnpike there. There was Route 7. We took Route 7 directly up to Route 20, which is Route 20. We started through downtown Cleveland, and this was more inspiring story to talk about how we got to Cleveland, but the truck blew up. Downtown Cleveland. And we moved in and we began our lives here. And, I could go on and on about the family, but Jim, there's a lot of things I'd like to share with this young group of people before we run out of time.
Okay. I've been with Teddy for a long, long time. And he talked a little bit about the sports. We've been in sports with our brothers for 60 years. Matter of fact, won another championship. And this past year for the kids in downtown Cleveland that are waiting to get some service by the hospitals in Cleveland. But, I was there in 1964 when we first started. You started with Cleveland Steel Container. Can you tell us how you started there? How you approached it?
Well, at this point, I've gotten out of Cleveland Heights High School, and I'm kind of bouncing around with no focus. And so I decided to take care of the military thing, which I did. And I returned, and I started into John Carroll Night School. And I was never really a good student, and I'll tell you a little more about that. The pressure on grades and everything didn't work for me. So here I'm out of high school, and I don't know exactly where I'm going. I'm not going to college because there's no money around to pay to go to college, okay? And I've decided that I have to, grow up or do something. So I started thinking about the things I could do. And the problem I had is when I first came we came here in 1948, and the truck blew up, I went into Roxbury Elementary school system, and I was in there for 2 days. I was supposed to go into the 5th grade, and they pushed me back to the 4th grade. All of a sudden found out the word slipped out dyslexic. Well, I already knew I couldn't spell and read. This wasn't new to me, but I didn't think I was dumb. But that's the first time in my life I faced real rejection. And part of my story today and part of the future, and it goes on to the next example, is about this new company I started out of John Carroll University. But rejection is a very powerful negative force, and it actually changed my life because I realized that something was wrong and no one could help me, because at that time, this is 1948, they didn't understand dyslexia. They couldn't treat it. I could not spell. I could not read. But I was very good at math. And dyslexic people have a way, and think about this, if you run into a wall and something is against you, and you accept it, and you want to get rid of the rejection, you had to prepare for that. I was an athlete. I wanted to compete. I didn't mind competing with myself. I didn't mind failing, you know, and trying. So I'm in John Carroll University, and I'm taking typing. Now, what am I doing in the typing class? They got a big building over there at the front, and to get through the first semester or so, I had to take typing. I mean, real typing, like an old machine typing. And I was in the class. It was on Friday night, and there were 14 people in the class. I was the only guy in the class. All the guys were girls. And of course, they already could type and so forth. So I was sitting there and so forth, and the guy said, you know, I really have to get a job now and start working. So I went out and got hired by a company called Leamon Inland Steel Container, big company, a sales trainee. They got a car for me. I had red hair piled up the top of my head. I could talk, I had fun. They thought I could sell. I took on that job, took that responsibility on. I wasn't very bad at it, you know, but I got kind of tired of the fact that it was that simple. So I decided one day, instead of selling containers for Inland Steel Container, which is a sales program, these steel pails, which are now plastic, I would go into the business. So all the people I started calling on, I started saying, look, if I go into the pail business, will you buy pails from me instead of buying from Inland Steel? And it was amazing. The people said, yeah. Well, okay, what does it take to get in the steel pail business? So I needed equipment, but I needed people who were mechanical. I was not mechanical. So I had my Harley Davidson, and all the people that rode Harley Davidsons were all mechanical, and they all could fix the motorcycles. And I figured if they could fix the motorcycles, they could build me a pail plant. So I started buying junkyard. It took $18,000. It took about a year and a half to raise $18,000 to buy the welder, to start the thing at 2720 East 79th Street. This is 1964. I'm down there with 30 employees. This old welder, we could make a steel pail. I forgot one thing, working capital. Now you would think I hadn't been trained, I hadn't gotten the education. I didn't even understand what working capital is. That's what you need to buy the steel and so forth. So I said to these people, the Moritz brothers, I said, look, I'll take a half a truckload of steel on Monday morning. We'll turn it into a pail. All 40 of us will turn it into a pail by Thursday. I will deliver it. I will get the money. I'll come back and I'll pay you on Monday. So I was in net zero working capital before it became fashionable in your business school or your training you got or will get. But I built that business from scratch. From 1962, we started production in 64. In 1969, I was the SBA Man of the Year in Ohio and runner-up nationally. My son was born. I was happy. It was, you know, I was 30 years old. The business was great. This is beautiful. Rejection hadn't showed up. I didn't realize it was going to come back again. I thought that the dyslexia, after I got through with the dyslexia, nothing would like that happen to me again. It was clear sailing. Look at what's happened in 1969. Everything is beautiful. You know, I'm happy. All of a sudden, I decided I have to be bigger, and I want to expand the company. So I got to raise money, and there's no money in the family because we hadn't even paid off the truck yet. But the question simply was that I had decided to go into the plastic pail business. So I was the one that started it, the idea. We had to raise $800,000. We raised $800,000. Why? Because of the track record. The company was doing very, very well. And a lot of people were interested in it. I didn't realize every time I went out and got someone to invest in it, they were ultimately could be my enemies. Sound like they were doing me a favor. But somebody warned me, do not sell control of the company, which I ultimately did. I ignored them and went ahead and built the company. 6 months after I do this, everything I'm on top of the world, I get called before a board of directors meeting, shareholders, and a lawyer comes up to me named Bernie Towle. He sits me down in my own office and says, Ed, we're going to change tomorrow. You're not going to be the chairman and the CEO anymore of the company. You know, we are going to replace you. You don't have the background or the education. The background or the education to run a company, it's going to be $12 million. Of course, it dawned on me, my first question is, then how do we get here? Well, they weren't interested in that. And I didn't mind the idea that I didn't have the education. I didn't like the words, the background. You don't have the background in the education. The background, what do you mean by background? Well, I I spent 3 months, living with the new chairman, and then I called up my brother Jerry. I said, come and get me. I went into would now become my partner, Chris Page. And incidentally, that company's still in business today. I am proud about that. At least I started something that was that great. But I literally walked out because of the rejection. I was so devastated that they had taken it away from me that I could hardly get under control. So, Jim, that part of rejection and how I handled it and how I learned to handle it is a message. This is the message today to all young. Rejection, we'll talk more about this. You've got to be able to handle that. And I'll tell you how I trained myself to handle it. I had to train myself. I took 2 years off and went out of town and working in Philadelphia so I would not be in the neighborhood or in the situation to confront myself with the people that had stolen something from me. Because I was naive or whatever, I was young. But the question is, and then I come back 2 years later and start all over again. Start all over again. I guess the point I'm trying to make early here is you got to start all over again sometimes. Over again. And you got to be able to handle rejection. And if you're in business school and you're here and getting an education and you're going to go out and you're going to try to move forward and take people with you. And I want to talk in the future, given the opportunity, Jim, about how you build a business and how you learn to build a team.
How did you get the money? Where did you get the money to start to get clean stuff container?
Well, you start going out, you're talking to people. If there's no money in the family, that's a good question. There's no money in the family, no one to go to. You got no uncles, no cousins. You got this idea to clean a steel container, the $18,000. I kept selling, working for Inlet Steel Containers, trying to convince people one by one. It took about 1.5 years, 2 years to raise the $18,000. Wasn't that interesting? It took all that time and all that energy. It took about actually 3 days to raise the $800,000. It took me out of control of my company. You have to ask. You have to have a story. You've got to get people to believe in you. And the only one that can get people to believe in you is yourself. You have to be able to do this. And again, it takes conviction. Look at it. It's sports. And there's a lot of athletes in here, One thing I didn't like about, I loved the basketball and I loved all the sports and so forth. I didn't like the boxing thing so much because I didn't like looking across the mat and seeing somebody out there was determined to knock me down and knock me out and vice versa. I happened to be very good at it at the time, so it worked for me. But rejection, and it was devastating to me, and I walked away from it. Fortunately, I walked away and had the courage to handle that rejection because someone told me at the end when we resolved the thing, when I was going back and could go back and take that company over, somebody showed up, what I call a hero, showed up and said, Ed, you've not been treated fairly there. Let's go back and buy your company. Let's go back and buy your company. I'll help you do this because a board meeting was coming up. And I said, well, that's a great idea. I was so excited about that because they had me pinned down because they had the majority. I still had the majority of the stock, the most stock, but it was not controlled. And I asked them to buy me out. They weren't going to buy me out. They weren't going to buy me out unless I signed a non-compete. That was a little bit like that comment about, you're not the right person. You're too short, you're too this. It's some disguise. No. It was, I wasn't ready for it then, and I sure wasn't ready for them then. This is a reoccurring thing in my, at 7 pieces of my life. I'm in my 7th round. I'm just warming up with this first company I lost. But I did come back because I learned how to handle rejection. I did come back because I learned how to handle people. I did come back to play again. And that's what we all know about athletics. You got to be able to play again. You have to have a conviction in yourself and in your teammates and in your coaches. And if you're on a team and you're here, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. And I'm sure you know what rejection sounds like. And we'll talk a little bit about how to meet that rejection head on.
Well, in 1971, you gave up your interest in Cleveland Steel Container, started a new company, Crawford. How did you finance that? Tell us about how you did.
Well, you know, I have 10 heroes in my life. The first hero I didn't get, and I want to mention her name, was Mrs. Killinger and Mrs. Vincent. They were the teachers in my 5th and 4th grade at Roxborough Elementary School. They tried to work with me on this dyslexia. They made me feel, try to understand it. They kind of saved my life because I was on a real fast track to be a very nasty, nasty person. You know, I got aggressive and I got all the things you do when you feel like you're an underdog. At least I felt that way, but maybe other people don't. But you know, the more I felt I was being abused, the more aggressive I became. That's not good. She turned and coined. When I moved to Philadelphia and came back, you know, I wanted to buy another company, start over. You know, a hero, very wealthy man, heard the story and asked me if I would take his help in the next meeting and see if he could take the company back, control the company back. You know, because I had 42%. So I said, of course I'd be thinking. So that began, you know, this was like 90 days. And he started helping me buy all the stock back and everything. And we're all ready to take it over. And and I think we won because we go to a meeting downtown and all the proxies and everything else that the other people thought they had, he had already bought up all their votes. So they get this, we had to go down to the meeting, they asked for the proxies, and all of a sudden we have the proxies, you know, I get to take them in and they get mad, all the people and my partner at that time, they all get discouraged, and Mr. Towell was all flustered because he thought he was gonna get rid of me, and he didn't get rid of me yet, he didn't finish me, you know, he left me alive. So I was right back. So I get a call after we had the first meeting, and they postponed the meeting to the next day. And I was asked by him to come out, so I went out to his office and I sat down with him. And he says, Ed, you're going to get your company back tomorrow. Are you happy? I said, I'm really happy. I don't know what to say. I can't thank you enough. Yeah, but yes, you know, I was stunned. I didn't like the question because it kind of, is he going to back out on me? There I went right away to the rejection. It's going to back out on me? No, he said, I got a better idea, or at least another idea. Why don't we make them buy you out? Because they're on the run now because they know I'm helping you. And take half the amount of money you deserve, and I'll lend you the same amount. Start all over. Ed, don't work for them. Don't go back and be in that position. Start all over. You're smart enough. You're aggressive enough. You can do this yourself. Do it again. And I took that advice, Jim, and that began Crawford United in 1972. You know, we started over. So actually 74, we got in production. And that company today, with the help of my son Matthew and the team we built, is $2 billion in revenue, 8,000 employees. And when I talk about 8,000 employees, I want to point out one thing. These are all manufacturing jobs. And one thing that we have a very strong culture around workers and people that work and punch time clocks. We have respect for that, a lot of respect for it. Because keep in mind, every time there's one person that's working for you, there's probably 3 in the family. So it's 4 numbers. It's 4 times. And they're punching that time clock and going in that office, building every single day, and they want a job, they want a job, they want a job, they want to be treated fairly. And the whole concept, companies don't get in trouble because the employees in the factory have a problem. It's the ownership or the people running the company. And I'll assure you, the Crawford companies are running, and job retention and job creation is all around making sure that people don't take business from us. We take business from other people. And but we have a real alliance and a partnership with our employee. And It's 8,000 employees, but that's worldwide.
You know, entrepreneurship is something you've talked about a lot. How did that help you with the companies, and how can people help themselves?
Well, entrepreneurship is, number one, entrepreneurship is, it was 16 letters, it's hard to spell. See, now, it's hard to spell, I think that's a number, I'm dyslexic, if I'm missing a number, give you a benefit of the doubt, guys, girls. But the question is, entrepreneurship, there are master's degrees, there's business degrees, there are law degrees, there are all types of degrees, but I don't know many, entrepreneurial degrees. In China, being an entrepreneur is the biggest thing in the world. Being in America, so what is an entrepreneur? Generally stereotyped, people think that entrepreneurs are just people that are very rich, been very lucky, invented something. There's lots of ways to think about it. But we're all basically entrepreneurs in life. And I think that my career is an example, not because I'm talking about myself, because there are people I can give you names that, I'll give you one name that got named Mal Mixon, a good friend of ours, that is an entrepreneur right from Cleveland that I really respected. He came out of a Cherokee, out of Oklahoma, out of the Cherokee part of the world, as an Indian, as a baseball player. Got a scholarship to Harvard, went to Harvard, went into the Marines, got out of the Marines, acquired a company called Invacare from scratch, made it into a world-class company, and then finished off his career by 12 years as the chairman of the board of Cleveland Clinic. That's a hero. That's an entrepreneur. And I'm not comparing myself because I'm small compared to that trip. It was fantastic. He was a good friend of ours. Unfortunately, he's moved on. But entrepreneurship is a feeling. Entrepreneurship is about rejection. If you're going to come to bat a lot, if you're going to try in the world a lot, in sports or in anything, you're going to get pushed back or beaten back. The other people are not going to let you have their way. The question is, how do you handle it? And the sports field, it's the score. In the business world, the obstacles are different, they're more subtle. You can't get money from the banks because you don't have a background. The people that get money from the banks already have money. Try to start a company with no money, that's why it took me a year and a half to get to $18,000. Now maybe that sounds like a small effort for some, but to me it was a monster effort. Then to get treated and lose the company. And I'm pointing out these things, and I wish I had more time because I'm just skimming over the top of it. I'll summarize that part about entrepreneurship is not treated fairly in the academic world, in my opinion, I think. And I've gotten recently invested and involved down at Kent University, and that business school talks about the College of Business and Entrepreneurship. I think there's a lot to be learned from entrepreneurship. As basic as the idea that if someone sitting over there, if Jim's over there, and he starts giving me any negative about what I want to do for myself or my family or for my company or for my life, if he says, well, you're just not ready. I mean, and your closest friend, you're just not ready now.
When he starts boxing.
Yes. No, but the question is, it starts, as soon as he says it, I pick up the vibe that it's coming. I don't allow it to come to myself. I don't allow it to gain momentum. I don't allow it to make me feel, I don't allow it to lose my confidence. I don't allow it to make me cry. I don't allow it to do anything. I stop it. I turn it back. I refuse to accept that. If you sit there and take it, it's going to come back again and again. but I think you can be trained. I think you can talk about it. Now, here I am at Lake Erie College, and I'm excited to be here because I'm particularly excited about the young group and the concentration here. The answer is in the athletics. I've got it down to where I think you understand that I believe that rejection is a dangerous thing in life. And handling it is a very important thing. And you can train yourself, and you have to train yourself to take that inbound negative and turn it into energy. That comment coming from Jim isn't going to do anything other than fire me up. It's going to make me more competitive, more convicted. You know, and particularly if I'm fighting on behalf of other people, like in the business world or anyone, I can bring the same intention and tenacity and same feeling into the room, and people know it when I get serious about it. But I'm serious about it all the time in my head, and I want everyone. And if I'm only talking to 5 people, only 5 people come out in this room saying, "Gee, that's an important thing. I should do that. That's going to make me better. I'm going to be smarter. I got the message." Rejection. I got to watch for that rejection. You can learn to do that. If any of you do that, any of you refer, you're sitting someplace doing something in the next week, next month, or next rest of your life, and you say, "You know something? Ambassador was right. I'm not taking rejection lying down, period."
Will you share with us the ambassadorships to Ireland? How did you get in there? What did you do in Ireland? How did you feel about the time you spent there?
Well, when I met President Trump, I like President Trump. He's a kind of a big, roly-poly, big, tough guy from New York City, and actually I was born in Manhattan, and I liked his style. I think, you know, I wish he'd have gone to charm school, but the question about it, he lives up to what he said he was going to do, as far as I'm concerned, and I worked very hard to get him elected, and I played a major role in it. So as that gift came back and asked me if I wanted to be an ambassador, I said, "Yeah, I think I'm ready to be ambassador." Matthew is ready to take over the company. If Matthew's not there and ready to take over the company, and this is how it goes. He says, "Ed, give us a country." I said, "Ireland." He says, Vice Premier, his Secretary of State, he says, "You just can't give one name, Ed. You just can't say Ireland." I said, "Okay, you got to give us 3 names." I said, "Okay, Ireland, Ireland, and Ireland." And it was unbelievable. It took 17 months from the day I met in Washington before you have to go through a routine by the Treasury Department, this department, that department. You have to go, you got to get through that. Then you got to get in ambassador school. You got to go 8 weeks in Washington, 6 days a week in ambassador school. You can get knocked out anytime. You get through that, then you got to go in front of the Foreign Relations Committee, and then on top of it, you got to before the U.S. Senate, which I got 90 votes for me and 4 against me, which was a pretty good score. But it was a very difficult, but if I had been prepared for that whole trip and the check and everything else, you know, it almost wore me down, but every time I felt like, was it worth doing this? I turned to the fact that I can overcome this. They're not going to run me out of this thing. I am not going to be defeated before I even play. So it was, and with the backing of my family, because it was a long time. We had to kind of suspend my whole life in the business. Matthew it's like going in, "Hey man, this is good. I'm going to be an ambassador now. Here are the keys to this company," with 6,000 employees at the time. Well, fortunately, he was ready, and he's done a fantastic job, and it gets bigger and bigger. But you know, it's really kind of funny, Jim. You talk about it. I'm right back to again. I get back. I don't retire. I decide I'm going to start another business. So I got a company called Crawford. and Matthew accused me of it. I named it the Crawford, instead of group, Crawford United. So Matthew says, Dad, what is that, a rugby team you brought from Ireland? No. Well, you know, so I have a little company called the Crawford United, which is a startup, exactly doing what I was doing back. We're buying disabled businesses with people in them, factories that are shut down. If something wrong with it, we like it, and we're there. It's, you know, it's a fun experience. So I'm right back where I want to be, you know, and part of my future, and this is part of my involvement with Kent and so forth, you know, taking the time to express or point out how important rejection is in your life and how to prepare and think about it. And I don't think before you came in here today, you spent much time thinking about entrepreneurship, and you sure didn't spend much time like I. How is this guy, Ed Crawford, this ambassador, how could he think rejection is so damn important that he'll spend an hour and a half talking about it? I'm trying to give you a gift. Think about it. Use it. Don't be taken down by it. Use it for yourself. You just got to believe.
You want to share some of the things you're doing with the group?
Well, I've been looking as a family. I've been looking for a long time for someplace to. One thing, if you think about entrepreneurs, they end up being rich. You know, it's hard to. If there's a scoreboard and the scoreboard is money, all of a sudden one day things start happening and it starts piling up. So we've been looking. The family's been looking for some time for something that was connected to a combination of the things I like and feel responsible for. And I know a lot about how important education is. I never wanted to, you know, right from the very beginning, I thought, where in this world of gifting and doing things for others, where can you get the most reward, not for yourself, but for everyone else? And I settled on the education field, and I was approached by Kent, and one of the two people in that meeting is sitting in this auditorium. I won't point her out this morning, but you know, showed up and had this great idea for a new college, you know, which was specialized or concentrate on both business and entrepreneurship. And I hope that with a little push that people will start saying, if I'm going to go to business school, where in the business school is the content that talks anything about rejection? And one of the questions I had at it, of all places, Trinity College, was from a student that said, I'm happy to have discussed and heard you speak about rejection and more about entrepreneurship. And I didn't know much about entrepreneurship, and I sure didn't pay much attention to rejection. But listening to you has pointed that out. I think we should switch out. I'm tired of talking about myself. And yeah. And
Why don't you take some questions from the group?
okay.
It's hard to see out there, so if you put your hand up, you're standing. You have a point?
Yes, sir.
First of all, I want to commend you, Ambassador Crawford. I'm also dyslexic, and I'm a retired Raymond Brothers and Barber Valley Circus Clown Hall of Famer. And to hear you speak, I wish 98% of the kids would listen to a young gentleman like you that have a hard goal like you do. And Mr. Bolton, I owe you also a heartfelt thank you for your business sense and everything. I did shows for the NBA and for the Cavs for many years. You both deserve a round of applause and a heartfelt thank you.
Thank you.
do at this moment is transition to question and answer. And so I know for a fact I have at least 20 students who are participating in this MBA 530 leadership course who are juniors. I know that they each have probably more than one question. And I also will invite not just that class, but any student, please, to come down and address Ambassador Crawford and ask a question that you may have, both personally and professionally. So he's an open book, and he's ready for questions. So I want to make sure that everyone in the class especially takes a moment to come on down and ask a question that you feel compelled to do so. So who's going to ask the first question? Come on down. Come on down, sir. Now let's go ahead and talk in the mic. I'm going to go ahead and flip it around now so everybody can hear what you have to ask.
Hello, my name is Philip Hawkins, and Ambassador Crawford, I'd like to know when you decided that entrepreneurship was going to be for you instead of working a job.
In the tower that night, and I talked about the typing class, I just knew I was in the wrong place, you know, and I wasn't going to make it through John Curl night school. I wasn't built that way. You know, I thought that I was disappointing myself, and this is where I felt that I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. But I was there, and I had been dragged along a little bit for a couple of years or a year in going to school because I thought that that was really going to be a wonderful escape. I'm going to break out. If I do this, it's going to work. It wasn't working for me. You know, I needed something that was more fulfilling. I wanted to be part of something bigger or something. So I just I didn't back into it. You know, I just, one day just said, you got to do something else. You got to be part of something. You got to do this. You're not working for someone the rest of your life. Doesn't make any sense to you. You know, go for it. You know, so I just went for it. And in fact, and I passed in the typing. I go back to this one gal was next to me, the typing class. We had to do this typing, so no one was in the room. So I was Posler, and she goes, and her hands me another one of the things, She was the first person really that helped me out other than getting me a few dollars and so forth. I just felt that I had to do something more for myself and more for my family. I wanted to help my mother. I didn't like where she was living. I decided I had to go get it. Does that answer your question?
Yes, if I may, one last question.
Okay.
How long would you say it took to net your first profit? And based off the research I found, it takes a year for a business to be profitable. Do you find this to be true?
It takes at least a year. Depends on the business. If you buy it, one of the things, if you start a business, that is really, really difficult. Really difficult to be successful the first time out. When I rebuilt the business after I got back and started the Crawford Group, I started buying businesses that were in trouble. I started buying businesses from banks that didn't want to finance them any longer, that they had a problem in lists, they had a problem like that. I kind of started myself, boy, I built that first company, I'm smart, I've done this, I can do it again. At least somebody thinks I can do it again. I'm one of one. But the question about it is, I started calling on banks and saying to them, where are the assets or where are the companies you have that have problems? Well, we have a problem here, we have a problem there. So I started buying it, and in my mind I said, I can fix anything. I had gotten to the point where I started believing myself again. And I built that company, and I got set back, and I had to start over again. But geez, I said, I did it. I can do it again, I can do it better. So I convinced myself, and it's a good place to start, that you better just get on this thing and go for it. So it was easier for me, and we still do a lot of that today. Starting businesses is 4 times harder than buying a business that you can invest in and be part of.
Thank you for your time.
Okay.
And what I wanted to ask is, in all your different leadership positions that you've held, what skills would you say remained consistent, and what new skills did you have to develop in each position?
Well, the skills that I had to develop, came first, okay? Yeah, I didn't think I really had that many skills, so when I got the business going, I knew right away. Let me describe it this way, is like, I thought I was a quarterback, I was the entrepreneur, okay? And it's like having a room of people that are all kind of business like yourself, smart, ambitious, you're in the center of the room. And I started looking around and I said, why, I got a picture of this all the time. The people that are the entrepreneurs, the drivers, the risk takers, are standing in the middle of the room. You get so far? Okay. Now, all the people that are standing around the room, doesn't mean they're not as smart, not as ambitious. They just don't want to be in the center, okay? They don't want the frustration. They don't want the rejection. They don't want all those things. I got past that already. In my second career, I was past that. I already was the quarterback one time. I lost my team, but I was the quarterback one time. But what I did learn the second time around, which is the fundamental strength of our company today, is I went into the corners and started talking to all those people standing around in the corner, people, and saying, how can we work together? And all of a sudden I found out that people were saying to me, basically in different ways, look, it's simple. I don't want to be the quarterback. I just want to be on your team. That's when you can create that atmosphere where the people say, look, I don't want to be the quarterback. I don't want to own the team. I just want to be the right tackle. But I want to be the best right tackle in the whole league. And I want to be respected. And I want the quarterback to respect me. I want everyone to know that I'm the best. Just because I don't want to be the quarterback, that doesn't mean I'm not less ambitious. So we have built a culture around the fact that people come into our companies that understand that. Understand that. And it's amazing how many there are and how important it is for them to be the best guard. Okay? And there's so many fantastic people. Being the quarterback is not always kind of, look, I was the quarterback at Cleveland Steel Container and I got knocked out. Okay. So I had to start over again. Well, okay, but that's fine. But if I got knocked out, I'd probably start all over again. But the question is, it's the people that are committed to me and were committed to me and my team. That's who I owe the respect to. That's who I owe the competitive nature to. I'm not fighting. I'm competing against myself. I'm competing for the people. The question, it is creating an atmosphere around leadership that other people will follow you. And if you don't want that, follow someone that needs you. And it's happiness on both sides. So I think we have done a great job of creating an atmosphere. Anybody can play it in the Crawford companies. There's room for everybody. As long as they're in there competing hard and committing, we'll commit.
Thank you.
Certainly that response very much supports what it is we've been talking about in our class about this differential between leadership and management. Great example, a real world example of that. So please, ask your question.
My name is Laura. So my question for both of you, as leaders, CEOs, vice presidents, what was the easiest thing you found and the most challenging thing you found when trying to manage people and work with people?
I think that as far as getting people to work for you, you got to spend some time with them. You got to know what their issues are. You got to know what they want to do and how they would fit into your organization. And if you do that right, you end up getting the right people that stay there. Again, some of the points that he just made. Everybody doesn't want to be the CEO. But they want to have a job for the family so they can take care of their kids and that type of thing. And if you can set up that kind of atmosphere for them and stay with you for a long, long time, was at Ernst & Young, my secretary, and with me, even after I left there, she came over to the Cavs with me, and probably 40 years, she's been with me. And she's, you know, an assistant, but she's there all the time. She knows what she's doing. And people have to like what they're doing, otherwise they're going to be gone.
I got a great answer for you. You're going to like this answer. Yeah. In the company, it was, let's say, 15 years ago, we were hiring a major hire, and the way it goes is, people would interview and want the job, and a lot of people would want to come to work for us. And Matthew and the team would get it down to 3 individuals. And then I would talk to the 3 individuals and come back and say, well, Matt, this is the one I like the most. So in this particular philosophy, and when I do the interviewing, I always schedule the interviews on Saturdays and Sundays, not during the week. I don't know why I did this, but Saturday was a good time. It's a lot more realistic. You're talking to someone on Saturday. On Monday, it's a little tense. They keep rolling on Saturday. So Saturday at 10 o'clock. So this particular Saturday, I had 3 interviews. I had 3 people they had picked for me. So the first person comes in, sits down, and I know right off the bat, just by looking at the selection and the information system, this is what I think the other side has picked. I thought Matthew and his team, this is the person, they're starting with them. And it was perfect. I looked at the resume and I said, this fits absolutely perfectly. So this is about 9:30, and I said, well, why don't we start on the basis that, I have a particular view of this job. I don't know if it's the same view of the other people that are involved in this, but let me explain to you what I think this job is and what it's going to require from you to be successful. And then you can think about it, and because if I explain the job correctly in the way it is, and the way it will be, and where your future is, and where the prospects are, and what you need to do to accomplish that, that's where we start. So I want you to go home and think about that, and call me back on Monday. I thought that was very simple. He looks at me, and I said, is that fair? He says, well, that's very direct, And it's just an hour and a half later, the phone rings. I don't know how he got my telephone number. He calls me up. Let's just call him Ben. And Ben calls me up and he says, I just had lunch with my wife. And I'm calling you to tell you I don't have to wait till Monday. I like you. I like the company. Well, I just don't want to work that hard. You look like someone that's trying to build a $2 billion company. So the question is, you have to get in and match up what your interest is and what you've got to know how, if they can be successful. You have to understand, you don't put someone in it and play the right guard who's never been the guard and doesn't want to be the guard. It's the same thing, you can't hire someone that doesn't want to be what the job is. Does that help? Okay.
Thank you.
That certainly speaks to some of the things we've been talking about as well in this class of ours. The importance of leaders to find the right followers and set the right expectations and understanding so people come in and can be successful. So who's going to give us the next question? Okay, Mary Michelle.
Hello, Mary Coleman Walsh.
Be nice. I know.
So I am surrounded by a lot of Irishmen that have kissed the Blarney Stone. They certainly have the gift for gab in my family. But I'm wondering what communication skill you think served you best in your life and your success.
My view of that?
Yeah, what skill do you think in conversation or in communication served you best? Because naturally, the Irish tend to have the gift of gab, but I'm wondering if you can hone in on a skill that we might find valuable.
We don't say gift of gab anymore, we say poetic license. So we have a poetic license, okay? You know, a little bit here, a little bit there. Actually, if it's sincere, you know, and people know, don't think you can fool people, you know? You know, that's why you get a big factory like in China, we have 280 people or 300 people that work there. They know who we are, they know what we are. We're a partnership. How can I run the factory? How can we run the factory without them, okay? So, going back to a poetic license, you know, generally, the Irish people, particularly the Irish executives, you know, are not selling themselves, they're selling their dream. And their dream is their business. And in the business is the people. So if the people don't believe in you, you're not going to get there. And all the history and all the responsibility that I've had, the individuals that have followed me into business, all those people that were in the corner, that came out of the corner and came over and said, I'm going to play for you, Ed, because you're going to play to win. And you're playing for us. And if you'll take your part of it, and if you communicate that, you know, there's a certain respect that's built into that. So you have to speak in a way, in a term, and I'm talking in my poetic license tone right now, and I hope I'm making sense to you.
Okay. Certainly everybody can appreciate the fact that his communication style is one that is very direct, very honest. You know exactly what you're going to get. And in the example of the person who decided to turn down the job, it was clear that he set expectations and communicated them in a way and was unabashed in doing so. And that's how he's able to find, or was able to find, the right person to put in the right place on the right bus. So can I take another question from the student? Yes? Okay. Please, come on down.
Hello, my name is Evan Brennan. I just want to say it's an honor to have you here talking to us. My question is, throughout your entire career and all the work that you put forth, do you have anything that, if you could, you would go back and change, or do you have any regrets?
Well, I'm not that regret-oriented person, so it's a good question, and I've never been asked that question before. You know, well, Matthew, can you answer that question? You're supposed to be my wingman and jump in here. No, I actually, you know, the only thing I regret is that, you know, that I think I could have done better, you know, is that I disappointed people that I expected never to disappoint. You know, sometimes I haven't been as good and as great and as smart and as undisciplined and everything else, you know, and I disappointed myself, but I didn't live up to my own goals of what I put out there for that person, and that bothers me, you know. So it's not a specific thing, it's the fact that I've let somebody down that depended on me. When you say you're going to do something and you're going to have a job and you're going to be here or this, or you get in trouble, we'll help you, or whatever commitments I make, I try to live very, very hard. I'm super competitive with myself about that. I'm still, you think at my age I should stop this, I'm still competing with myself every day to be better and live up to my commitments and make other commitments that I can live up to. It's just, so that disappointment bothers me, and sometimes it really hurts, but I try to make up for it. But I have made disappointed people and lived up in the situation I promised, never lived up to it. It bothers me. So That's the disappointment that I'm talking about.
Dad, I'll add one. I think that you're very good at trusting your gut and your instinct. And I think occasionally when you haven't, you look back and said, I should have trusted myself. Win, lose, or draw.
Yeah. Thank you. Good question.
I can't think of a better question to close this event out, if it's okay.
Right.
Oh, we have another question.
Right.
Okay, let's take one more question. But the event is not over after the answer to this question. So sit tight and let's hear your question.
My name is Raphael. My question to you is, after the year and a half of you raising your money to get your business started, what were the keys in getting your business running and becoming successful?
Having the people believe. I'm at 2720 East 79th Street, the middle of Cleveland, and I get the money, and we get the welder, and I have to hire like 21 or 22 people to come in there and try to convince them that we're going to make pails, and then they were going to get paid, and the whole surrounding of creating an atmosphere in which we could do it. I thought we could do it, it's because I had to create an atmosphere or a posture or lead in a way that they all believed in me, because I couldn't pay them for the first week. I had to have that other extra week. So you work, and then you didn't get paid for that week. You had to work another week because you could get paid for it. So just asking people with the money, now it's human content. Now you have to have people. Then they got to believe in you. They got to believe in the idea. And there can't be any slippage. And you have to be who you said you are. So is that helpful?
Yeah, and also once your business did become successful, what were the important factors in keeping it successful? Some people may start businesses and it doesn't turn out well in a year or two. What helps you continue to grow your company?
Well, it's simple. We sold the pails for cheaper than the big people would sell pails. I said one day, how do you win this thing? You got U.S. Steel, you got Inland Steel, you got these steel. The question, we both make pails. I said, something? I'm going to give them as good a pail, not a better pail, as good a pail for less money. And I've gone to, we lost a big account one time at one of our companies. I remember going out to I had to go to the factories. I was going to lose, a month's worth of work. And I got everyone together. There was about 100 people at that time. And I said, look, somebody just cut our price. And they're taking the business away from us. I got to cut the price back. And I'm going to cut their price. They're not going to push us around. And the net result is everyone's got to work the next 2 weeks for half the amount of money. Else we're going out of business. I'm 20 years old. I'm in this little old building downtown Cleveland, and the answer is, they got the message. The people I'm talking to got it. They said, fine, let's go get them. So we cut the price. It's that simple. It isn't that simple because you got to get people to do that. You got to believe that. And I bought another company. It's one of the most successful companies I ever bought in my whole life. I was supposed to buy it on Thursday. The bank was going to finance it, and I was going to close on Thursday. And then on Wednesday, they decided they wanted to change the terms. I had to go back to the people I already promised jobs and everything and say I can't buy the company. They want more money for it, the bank. They're looking at me like, well, you go solve it. That's the partnership. That's go solve it. And it's still tied to the expectations of people. We got the money. We started the business. I got them to give us the steel. They got paid. I delivered the pails. I got the pails. It was one load. And it was 2 loads. Zero. That company started in 1964 in business and never lost money 1 year. And in 1969, it was a very good business. And we got bigger and faster and more people. and we had a good pail, better than the other pairs of pails for a lower price. That's wins.
I was standing over in the corner, and a student pulled on my sleeve and said, "Please, can I ask a question?" Which I think is awesome. And so I'm going to have him come down and ask his question. And I'm following an audible here. We're going to do, after we close out the formal portion of this talk, 'cause I know that there are students and faculty and others who have to be somewhere at 11 o'clock when the classes start. Once we, and our football coach is here to present some gratitude gifts to our speakers, I'm going to ask that you, if you need to get somewhere else, that you go ahead and exit quickly and quietly. And then we're going to have kind of a master class of any students or anyone else who wants to stick around and sit in the front couple rows and ask additional questions, because he's got a lot more answers. And if you have the time, he does too. Okay, so we're going to take this one last question. Coach is going to give his presentation. The president is going to thank everybody for coming to campus. Everyone who needs to leave will leave, and whoever is left, we're going to have an encore session with the ambassador. Okay? Thank you.
My name is Peyton Brown. I play football here. I just wanted to ask, you're a role model to many people. Who was your role model growing up?
When you say role model, is someone that I would like to be like, or
just anybody you looked up to, or anybody?
Well, the answer is, and then I'm going to give you why. I'm going to give you a two-part answer. Number one, my mother. The reason my mother is so powerful in other than being my mother is, you know, we were a pretty poor family, and she wasn't very well educated, and we moved into the apartment building because after the truck blew up, she was always wanted to try to teach her boys, particularly I seemed to be a target, and she'd always want to make, I had to play 2 games with her, 1 or 2, all the time. Monopoly, you know what Monopoly is? A game where the one person's the banker. Well, my mother was always the banker. So she won every single game. But that wasn't what she really taught me. That was a bunch of real estate moving around. But she wanted me to play chess. And this is the most powerful, and I don't talk about this very much, but you asked me a good question. The most powerful thing, learning curve or experience, where someone said something to me that I really learned and have taken to a new level. We played chess. And she would teach me to play chess. And if I made a move, which I often, and I made a move, she'd literally start tearing. You've got to be around an Irish mother to know what happens when you disappoint them, you know. She'd be, oh my goodness gracious, why are you doing this? Why did you make that move? I said, Mama, it's a terrible move, and so forth. You, Ed, have to stop thinking about yourself and what you're going to do. You better start thinking about what the other people are going to do. That's quite a message. And I left there, and that never left my mind, and that never leaves my mind anytime, you know. And if I'm a success and accomplish some goals in my life to date, it's because I pay attention to what other people are thinking and what they're after and what they're trying to accomplish. It's not all about the Ed Crawford. That's my answer.
Say that Ambassador Crawford has spent a career playing chess against people who are playing checkers. And so no doubt he learned that lesson from his mom, and those are some indelible lessons that he has taken with him throughout his career. So I wasn't surprised at all by his answer. At this time, what I'd like to do is ask our new head football coach, Coach Bolden, come on down. First of all, I'd like him to just quickly mention what you're doing to turn around the culture of the football team and therefore our campus in an indirect way, and then to present our tokens of appreciation to our two guests.
No problem. Kind of turn to the side a little bit. As a head coach, football coach, and predominant leader of a lot of student athletes, I never want to miss an opportune time to speak to kids, to the future, okay? Before we get to the nice gift that we have for our esteemed guests, I want to share a quick story. So I wear this blue-collar jacket a lot. Most kids see it, and they probably say, oh, Coach Bolden looks like a mechanic, right? I wear this jacket for two reasons. The first reason should be very obvious. It's freezing cold here. But second reason is to always use as a reminder of where I am now and where I'm going in the future. Okay? To me, blue collar represents an honest day's work. Okay? You're never going to get anything in life without an honest day's work. Okay? Whether you're an athlete in the football field preparing for an opponent, or whether you're a student in the classroom aspiring to be an entrepreneur one day, a businessman, a doctor, and so forth. So for me, this jacket is very humbling. It's very humbling, okay? All right? Now, the definition of a blue-collar person is, just someone that uses their hands, okay? But I believe blue-collar is not just a job, blue-collar is a mentality, okay? So whether you have a white-collar job where you use your mind, or a blue-collar job you use your hand, or both, okay? I simply believe you can have a blue-collar mentality. Now, what does blue-collar mentality mean? Okay, I summed it up very, very, very simple. A blue-collar mentality to me means, okay, to always do right by people. Always do right by people. All right, but never sell yourself short. Okay, let me say that again. I want you guys to get it. I want it to resonate. Blue-collar mentality, okay, is to always do right by people and to never sell yourself short. I believe these men, these esteemed guests, right, Mr. Bolden, Ambassador Crawford, I believe that they've embodied those mentalities throughout the years, okay? And some of the things that we're doing differently here as it relates to football, I believe in relationships. Lake Erie College is a very small community, and I believe it takes a village, okay, to raise, to edify, to encourage the younger generation. And we're building relationships with the faculty and staff here, okay? We're going to approach this football thing through academics first and football second, okay? We're going to partner up with our esteemed NBA director, Bill Leamon. It's about to be Coach Leamon in a minute, okay? And he's going to help guide us, all right, through uncharted territories on how we can be successful as students, scholar student athletes here at Lake Erie College. I think it's time for our graduation rates to go up. I think it's time for our retention to be greater than what it has been. And I am elated for Professor Leamon to join us and to be a liaison between academics and athletics. So without taking much of you guys' time, I want to present some of the nice pleasantries we have for our esteemed guests. First, we have helmet for you, Mr. Bolden, that's signed by a lot of our football players. I believe some of these guys will be one day professional athletes. I believe some of these guys will be one day entrepreneurs and businessmen like you guys selves, and and I think it's a great token of appreciation to you. And to you, Pastor Crawford, I did not know you was such a football coach. I mean, hear you speak, you embody a lot of the qualities that I believe, I hold and I try to portray to our football team.
So first, a round of applause for the coach.
This is for you, all right? You'll forever be enshrined a Lake Erie Storm.
What's great about this is it's green. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, I do want to close our session today just by thanking you all for coming out today. It's great to have guests on campus that are here for the first time. It's great to have so many students come out, faculty, staff members. I want to thank Bill Leamon for helping us land this wonderful speaker. I really want to thank both these gentlemen for giving up their time and insights to all of us. So let's give them a nice thank you.